Welcome to the Tangent, gentlemen. Each week, Scott and I start with a topic from the previous episode, then we see where the conversation takes us. Along the way, a question, idea, or disagreement sparks a tangent. Chris keeps track of those tangents, and at the end of the podcast, we'll decide which tangent becomes next week's conversation topic. And this week, Scott, we're talking capitalism.
Yes. How you doing, Brad?
I'm good. How you doing? Yeah, been pretty busy.
Yeah, that's good. It's good to be busy.
Coming into a very difficult conversation here.
I don't know, man. I'm a lot worried.
All right, let me ask you this to start off. All right.
Okay.
What exactly is capitalism?
I think the textbook definition is it's an economic market system where it is driven exclusively by the basically the people that provide goods and or services are the generators of capital. And then on the other side, if you believe in the service or the good that they are producing, you can invest in them. You can provide capital so that they can become better at what they're doing. I say case, Henry Ford's building a car. You're in 1920. You're like, hey, I really think this car thing's going to catch on. I want to give some money, some capital to Henry Ford. And then once Henry Ford makes more money, what you invested, you get you become a part owner, so to speak, of his product and his production. So that's in the purest sense, that's what it is.
Okay. So does it equate or is it always alongside of a free market system?
Yeah, it has a component of the market will be the sole determinant, because if no one wants to buy Henry Ford's car, then in theory, no one's going to want to give Henry Ford money to make cars. Because why would I give you money to make cars that no one wants? But if you make a product that people want, which means the market supports it, then you're going to need more money to make more cars or to make better cars or different cars. And I want to be the supplier of that money because I want to benefit from the sale of the production and sale of those cars. So it is a free market system. Yeah. And it is, in its purest sense, completely devoid of any, I think Adam Smith called it he referred to it. Adam Smith is the guy that wrote the book, Wealth of Nations. Okay. 1700s. I'm not sure of the history. I read it. I researched it, and I can't remember the numbers. Late 1700s, early 1800s. And the idea that there's this fictional hand, that controls and moves the markets, but it's basically, you have an idea, you need capital to put that idea into action. You may or may not have the capital yourself. You solicit capital from interested parties. They give you money. If it's a good idea and you're good at making the product, you'll produce the thing, consumers will buy the thing, and you will be rewarded, and the people that invested in you will be rewarded. And then that process will continue to where you'll continue to make new versions of the thing. Or you'll say, hey, I have another idea. I want to make a two-wheeled motorized vehicle. Let's make that. I think people would like that. And so that free market will drive the influx of capital and the production of the product, and will provide a service that I, as a consumer, or service or product, that I, as the consumer, will want to have.
Okay. I may be making myself sound ignorant here, but I'm not familiar with that. Adam Smith, and you say 1700s?
So I want to say 1780. It's the book called The Wealth of Nations, and it was all about the idea of there is this, I'll say it's the magic hand or the free hand, which basically is just like the driving force behind monies and economics. So I would think at that time there were a lot of needs, or maybe not even needs, but a lot of desires. There were a lot of things yet to be made at that time. Okay, yeah.
So at that time, having people trying to make these things that people in their community or their nation desire was probably a real need, and having competition on trying to make those things the best and meet those needs would have been a good thing, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, the idea. I mean, it's again. I don't know how much economics you took. I took maybe one class in college. I don't even think I took one. But it's the idea of supply and demand. Yeah, I have an idea. I think people will want this product.
Yeah.
I will make this product. People will buy this product. I will employ people to make this product. Those people will get wages, but they will use those wages to buy the product. I keep going back to Henry Ford because, his idea was he wanted to make a car that the people that made his cars could afford. He felt like that was sort of the market the model that he had for making cars and to whom the cars were, for whom they were for. They weren't just for rich people. Yeah. He wanted it to make it to where you could work at a Ford factory and make enough money to buy the cars that they made.
Yeah.
So
at that time, if we go back to that time, was there, by the quick definition that you just gave and that we talked about, were there any truly capitalist or nations operating within capitalism at that time?
I think that was one of the ideals. Back to our conversation last week about the American dream.
Yeah,
I think that was within the ideals that we're going to be a society where anyone can come up with an idea, and if you can convince people to give you money to make a product, and you can successfully make that product, employ people, and pay those people wages and make that product. I think that was one of the ideals of America. Like we're going to be a nation, because if you think about like Europe, just European, for example, I think in Europe at the time, it was just, the land, what they were called the landed gentry, the wealthy people, the nobles. They're the only ones that had any kind of means.
Right.
And their money was just, they didn't get that money because they made a product. They got that money because their family was wealthy, and they collected taxes and had people labor for them and paid them a small amount of money. And it was pretty much like, hey, you want to feed your family? Well, you can come to my farm or my plantation or my estate and do this task for me, and I'll give you some money, but you're never going to you're never going to move up. You're going to be in that strata that pretty much that you're in. And I think that the American ideal was, we're all, back to our thing last week, everyone should be allowed to live their fullest and richest life. So no, I don't think that, I don't know what was going on in Asia. I don't know a whole lot about Asian history. I don't think that was going on in Asia. That wasn't going on in Africa. Definitely wasn't going on in Africa. I would say Europe, but even, most Europe, there was no, they all had monarchies, I think.
Yeah.
So there was no free society advancement in society in those places. So yeah, I think it was unique to here. So if that's your question.
To the United States?
Yeah.
Yeah. How close is the United States to true capitalism today? Or at any time, I guess. Do
I think we are? Yeah, I don't think we are at all, because what's happened is, I think what we, I think you know this about me. I minored in Russian literature, so I took a lot of Russian history and stuff. And so the big foil, and this was in the 80s, at the time, that was the Soviet Union. And so you had the communist system, so to speak, as the direct opposite to the capitalist or social, our version of this, capitalist free system.
Yeah.
Well, that was always painting with, in my mind, it was a very broad brush, because there were, the idea with, because communism is the extreme opposite. It is the government controls all facets of all economies, but they will provide what the people need. Like, that's, in theory, that's what communism does. And so whether you're a doctor or you're a teacher or you're a person who cleans the streets, you basically have the same income, but
Right.
you, in theory, don't need income because the government will provide for you.
Okay.
So, but that's total government control of the economics, as opposed to, in theory, capitalism is no government control.
Okay.
But I would argue that has not happened for a long. That I don't know when that. I don't know enough history, but in my lifetime, for sure, no government control has not been a thing. The government has always had their fingers on the scale.
Right, and that's what I'm trying to get. I'm talking with you to make sure I understand where we are with this definition of capitalism, because it really, I mean, United States is more of a hybrid, right?
Well, yeah, we are. I mean, and I think one of the things that people have come to realize, you have this pure definition of what capitalism is. And just like you have this pure definition of what communism is. Well, in theory, communism should work. I mean, it should work, right? Everybody gets exactly what they need, and everybody gets to do the job that they want. And as long as you're provided for, you should be happy. Well, it doesn't work. That people aren't like that. People don't do that.
Yeah.
I want more. People, when we talked about this a lot, people want more. I want the more. If I spend the time to go to medical school and become a doctor, I tend to think I deserve more than the person who didn't, who just went to school and said, I think the streets are dirty and I want to sweep the streets. But I should have the same life as the physician or the teacher or the whatever. I don't think that's not saying that communism should work. Completely negates human nature.
Yeah, that's what I was just thinking.
That's how you make the same argument for capitalism. Thinking that capitalism should work completely negates human nature. Because, I can think of several examples, and this is one of the things that I started researching for this podcast. It just kept getting darker and darker in my mind, and sadder and more just disheartening. Because I can think of I kept coming across so many examples of, well, capitalism said, true capitalism should have allowed this to happen. But the government stepped in and said, well, we want this other thing to happen. And so we continuously had the government taking now there are several examples in the past year and a half of the government taking ownership in private businesses. That's not capitalism. That's not even, that's so not that's the antithesis of capitalism. Because it should be, as you said, the free market, the economy should dictate which businesses succeed and which businesses fail. And we are so far removed from that. And don't get me wrong, I personally think if you look at, in my lifetime, in the 80s, the savings and loan scandal. There was a whole thing about the savings and loan totally manipulating dollars and interest rates and monies. Just a lot of shady stuff. And they got caught, and they didn't have to suffer the consequences for that because the government said, oh, we can't allow that to happen. And then you look at the housing crisis in 2008. Those people were making bad loans to people that they shouldn't have made the loans to. And so what did we do? The government came in and bailed those loans. Whereas if you want to say pure capitalism says, hey, you took a risk. You lent money to people you shouldn't have lent money to in the hopes of making more money off of them. Sorry, bad idea. You overextended on the price of the homes, and the people that you gave all this money to or lent this money to, they don't have it. They're not going to have it. And instead of saying, well, you made a bad decision, sorry, you took a risk, it didn't work, you're going to have to suffer the consequences. The expression was, they're too big to fail. We can't let that happen. And so the government definitely got involved in what should have been a wholly capitalist enterprise. And I can make a similar argument for the whole government subsidies for agriculture. Yeah. That's been going on for years. of we decide we want people to have the government decide we want people to have these professions or these activities, and we subsidize. It should be, I want to grow wheat. Okay, well, you want to grow wheat, seed costs this much, water costs this much, fertilizer costs this much. This is what it costs. You sell your wheat. But we don't let that happen. And if you sell it, great, and you can charge whatever you want. But we don't do that. There's so many laws and structures built into the systems that we subsidize people to not grow their produce, which is just mind-boggling to me.
It is, yeah.
But that's not capitalism. I mean, that's not, capitalism says the market should dictate what happens, good or bad.
So what do you think the argument was on the side of government? The comment that they're too big to allow them to fail. What is the argument on their side on why we need to step in and we need to provide these subsidies or we need to provide this support?
I think the argument is they are integral to the fabric of our society. And there will be some catastrophic consequences for them if they fail. I mean, if you think about like just the housing, like the 2008 housing boom. So you've got, I'm not an economist. I don't pretend to be an expert on this, but I have a decent understanding of this, I think. So we let a lot of people, a lot of businesses that were mortgage brokers, basically, say to, 1,000 citizens, yeah, sure. You want to buy a $300,000 house? We'll lend you the money to buy a $300,000 house. Full well knowing that based upon the formulas we have, you really can't afford a $300,000 house. But we're willing to take that risk because if we lend you $300,000, you're really going to pay us back $450,000 because that's the way loans work. And we'll take that risk because we'll make $150,000 on this and you'll find a way to pay us back.
Yeah.
But there were lots of packaging of those loans and it just became bigger and bigger. So you had these large, to your question about why was it too big to fail? This is my understanding. People started grouping these. So you own a bank, I own a bank. You give out 10 questionable loans. I give out 10 questionable loans. 8 of them become questionable. But someone comes along and says, hey, Brad, I'll buy your 8 questionable loans. And Scott, I'll buy your 8 questionable loans. So now that entity now has 16 questionable loans. Well, then another entity comes along and buys someone else's 16, and now they have 32 questionable loans. Well, eventually that entity becomes Chase Bank or Deutsche Bank or some huge entity that if they took that hit for the amount of risk they incurred, that Deutsche Bank or Chase, I think it was Chase, Deutsche is in Germany, but Chase Bank, they may collapse. And Chase Bank is interwoven into the fabric of so much of this country. I mean, they're funding businesses all across the country. And I think it became, hey, we can't allow that to happen, which that's definitely not capitalism.
Yeah.
I'm not an advocate of pure capitalism personally.
Yeah.
Because I am of the opinion that people need to have their worst tendencies regulated because they won't do it themselves. Well,
when we thinking about that, an easy example I don't think anybody can argue with would be child labor laws.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Yeah.
But you're absolutely right. That's a perfect example. But because the free market should say, if you're 12 and there's a factory in your town and they need labor and you don't want to go to school or you don't like school, you should be allowed to work because they will pay you a wage and you will get that wage and you will give that wage to your family or you will spend it yourself. And that's what free market should allow to happen. But yeah, we have to step in and say, wait a minute, do we really want our 12-year-olds working 10-hour days and making widgets or whatever? So that's a case of where we believe the government has to step in. And I personally believe the government has to step in because I think, and this is where I got into my darkness on all this, it's the examples of people being driven by greed. It's just so disheartening.
Yeah.
It's just so disheartening. And we're in a whole nother level now of what people will do to make more money. Because, if you in its purest sense, if you look at capitalism by its definition, the people who get the capital provide a good or a service with that capital. The consumer sees value in that good or service, and therefore they pay for it. So the person with the initial idea, they are the ones, they reap the benefits.
And, that makes perfect sense, the way you just stated that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But the problem for me now is people have figured out so many ways to game the system that they're buying businesses solely as not to produce a good or a service, just to basically turn that business into some kind of cash value. And this is the argument against private equity and what private equity firms do. And moreover, all things are up for purchase, which to me is also where the rules of capitalism have to be regulated. I mean, I personally am of the opinion that healthcare should not be seen as, a service that we may or may not provide, or you may or may not be entitled to.
It's essential.
But it's become, it's treated just like cars or, a service, some other service.
Yeah.
And so the idea is, should the government regulate that? Should the government play a role in that? And if they do, are they putting their fingers on the scale? Is that not allowing the free market? I mean, just in the past, there's famous example, it's famous, an example that's happened. The U.S. government owns a percentage of several of the chip manufacturers, that are being used for AI systems and computer chips in general, but primarily AI systems. I mean, that's not capitalism.
Yeah.
I mean, because not only do they own that percentage, they make the rules about what that chip company can and can't do.
So they're investors in a private company?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the chip manufacturers wanted to sell their chips to China, and the government said, you can't do that unless you let us own 15% of your company.
Yeah. Because
selling to China was against the law that we had. You can't sell this protected information to China.
Is China, is their economy capitalism?
Well, in theory, no. China is supposedly totally communist.
Can't there be capitalism in a communist system? I mean, they got a stock market. They've got private
not in the
businesses.
purest sense. Because in the purest sense,
so they're kind of so the U.S. is a hybrid system leaning towards capitalism, and China's a hybrid system leaning towards communism. Would that be true?
Yeah, I think I would phrase it differently. I would use a different verb than leaning towards, but yeah.
I like to really oversimplify things. I got to make sense to me.
No. This is again back to our thought about decision making. You tend to presume positive and I tend to presume negative.
So let me go along that simplistic mindset there. All right, so
and then let me just say, I don't mean to I surely don't want to present that I know this stuff in and out and I'm an expert. Okay. So you don't need to apologize for saying, I don't think I understand this, because I may know like 5 or 10% more than you do about this, but that's about it. That's not much, but so.
Well, I'm just trying to filter my way through it and see where I am, because, I think about, if you think about the ideas of capitalism and private ownership and investing in things to meet human desires or human needs and, competition, I think early on, if you think about, going back to the start of the United States, I could see that working really well. But then, kind of like you were talking, let's just talk about competition. So you've got all these companies competing to making this best gadget or whatever it might be. And one company does it really well and starts getting really big. And, it seems like at a certain point, it hit a point where the best thing to do with competition was to get rid of it. Thinking about like hostile acquisitions and takeovers and mergers and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And you start getting, these bigger and bigger companies, which then really lowers the competition, and that kind of goes away. And you reach a point where all these things we needed early in our development as a nation has been met. And it seems like now we're kind of in this point where instead of creating things, we're just trying to create consumers or demand. We're trying to make people think they need things that maybe they don't need. I don't even know if I'm making sense, but
no, you are making. I understand exactly what you're saying. Have we saturated the supply? If we go with the supply and demand model, have we saturated the supply so much so that people have everything they could possibly need, but now we have to convince them there's something on the demand we want?
Yeah. And then the other side of that, you talked about healthcare. You don't think that should be, I don't know if commodity is the right word, but, it shouldn't be something
Absolutely. I think that's the right word.
Okay.
It's not a commodity.
It shouldn't be a commodity. So, but, if you think about people that are struggling now, think about somebody you would consider poor 100 years ago and what they had, and somebody you consider poor today and what they have. I think today their material standard of living is much higher. There's a good chance they might have a car, computer, a cell phone, internet, high-speed internet. You have all these things, but does that make you better off when you can't afford things like healthcare or housing or things that might be considered more essential?
But see, that gets into this. Doesn't that harken back to, I don't remember when we had the conversation about who are we to say what's enough and what you should or shouldn't have,
Yeah, but it's right. Yeah, but what I'm saying though is like it seems like it's turned on its head now. Like there may be an economy that's providing things that's increasing people's material standard of living, but there are essential needs that may be more difficult to meet than ever.
Yeah,
like healthcare. Right. That's a great one.
Well, I know you. Whatever. I don't know. You don't make fun of me, but you may want to make fun of me because I feel like I'm thinking of books and shows and movies and stuff. I read this essay a couple weeks ago, and it was about this idea of this sort of these novels that came out in the middle of the 20th century that were about this totalitarian, this dystopian future. The classic example is 1984.
Yeah.
George Orwell's 1984. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of books that came out around that time. And there was one, are you familiar with the book Brave New World?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's written by the same guy that wrote The Perennial Philosophy, Aldous Huxley, right?
Oh, yeah. I don't know that other book. I don't know that other book.
Perennial Philosophy, I've told you about that. He did a real deep dive into world religions and what they all have in common. It's a great book. Great book. I've read it probably 3 times.
Oh, yeah, I need to get that.
And it's hard reading, yeah. But it's worth it.
Huh. Okay.
Yeah.
So, Brave New World, the idea is in this future society, everyone will be happy and they will get to do the thing that they are sort of designed to do. And people will be segmented. I think it was think this stratification was like alpha, beta, gamma, delta, epsilons. I can't remember which was the top and which was the bottom. Like the people that did the most sophisticated job, I apologize for my memory on this one, well, they were the alphas. Okay. So your scientist, whatever you think of as the most complicated intellectual job or complicated, sophisticated job, those are the alphas. And then the people that did the more sort of menial, trivial jobs were the epsilons, what were perceived as the easier jobs, if you will. But everyone had access to called Soma. And Soma allowed you to be happy. And so whatever joy you got from your job was supplemented by your consumption of Soma. And everyone was happy.
Yeah.
Not in a like, I'm drunk and stupid, but I'm just happy. Everyone's happy. And I read this article recently that said, everyone talks about the fear of 1984 and we're living in a 1984 Big Brother, the whole, you just say whatever you want to say, whether it's true or not. That was the whole thing with 1984, War is Peace. They would, every day that guy, Winston Smith, the main protagonist, his job was to go back and edit previous newspapers so that it didn't contradict current interpretations. And they said, that's sort of going on. I mean, you could make some pretty good arguments for that kind of stuff's going on right now. But they said another one to really consider is Brave New World. Because, to your point, have we not convinced ourselves with our media consumption that that's our Soma? As long as you've got enough of a thing to watch or a video to click on or a Twitter to post to or whatever, you're happy.
Yeah.
And is that not what Soma was doing? Like that is our Soma, which is your point. Our evil algorithms again. Our algorithms have convinced you that this is the thing that you're happy about.
Yeah.
You get your feed on Facebook or TikTok or YouTube or whatever.
And that's becoming a commodity.
And that's become a commodity. Exactly. And that was the argument that this thing was making. And it really prompted me I need to go back and read 1984. So Brave New World. But I think you're exactly on. I mean, that's become a good or service that people want to provide. And that's being done. And the part for me that I struggle with, that I think is the most dark part of this for me, because I'm not anti-capitalist, but I also don't believe it's the end all and the be all.
So what would be the alternative?
I think a moderated capitalism is a good idea. I think capitalism in general is good. I think people should be rewarded for creative ideas and inventions and allowed to prosper and grow and I think that motivates people to do more. Mm-hmm. But there needs to be a check mechanism.
So, okay. So there's not going to be an answer to this because, if there was, we would probably be living with it. But how do you decide where the government involvement with regulations was something that, is pretty well accepted, like we need some child labor laws, and where that should stop and not get into, hey, we need the government to be the major investor in AI.
Yeah. I think where it should stop is we have to define what is the common good. Because we can't define, no one can, I have not read anyone that definitive explanation about this is why AI is the common good. This is how AI will lead us to the common good. I think we can all agree that common good is 12-year-olds not working 10 hours a day to make T-shirts or whatever.
How do you think you keep it from going from man, I got this great idea. I'm Henry Ford, and I want Americans to have an affordable way to get around to, okay, we got decent cars now. Forget about cars. Forget about making them better. Forget about making a better product. We need to figure out how to make sure our investors make more and more money.
I think that's not capitalism. I think that's greed.
Yeah, how do you stop that though? I wonder what makes. Does that go along with my simplistic idea of we've met most desires or needs? Yeah, most our basic needs and desires. So now it's just about making our investors wealthy.
I mean, I think that's part of it. I mean, I think part of it is with the wealth comes and I don't know. I mean, it's sort of the chicken and the egg on this one, but with the wealth comes the power and the influence. And with the influence, you can change the structure, which will create more wealth for you, which will create more power for you. And I feel like this is where I got really dark and decided I needed to stop researching this topic, is I feel like we're way into that spiral.
Well, and it's so enmeshed in government and politics.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
we need them all to watch Spider-Man.
Yeah. When I worked at central office for the district and I would be in meetings and things just seemed bonkers to me, I would often say, so much so that people have quoted this to me, I'd say, can you explain to me why this is good for kids? I mean, like, why we're doing this thing that everyone is all excited about. Why is this good for kids? Like, isn't that our job? Isn't our fundamental job to provide the best learning experience for children? Like, wasn't that our job? I thought that was the fundamental principle. And a lot of times I would get an answer of, well, it's really complicated. And to me, if that's your defense, then it's not good for kids. Because if you can't explain to me, and I feel the same way about this idea about when does the government need to step in. Let's go back to the original founding documents. Provide for the common defense and promote the general welfare to ensure the blessings of liberty. That's what we're supposed to be about. Explain to me why lining the pockets or increasing the bottom line of my investors does those things. Because if you say to me, by doing that, these investors we will now expect them or require them to invest in other companies which produce more products and improve whatever. They think we need a more efficient car. Okay, then do that. They think we need a bigger car. Okay, then do that. They think we need sticking on the car thing, a car that goes 600 miles more efficient, 600 miles on a gallon of gas as opposed to, 350 or whatever. Okay, then do that. But we're doing this so we can make more money on our dividends. Yeah, that's not providing for the general welfare. That's not promoting the defense. That's not doing any of those things.
Yeah.
That's just making some people richer. And that's not, because the thing is, if you say that's what we want to do and there's nothing wrong with that, I can accept that argument if we go back to what's the baseline for everybody else? Because if the baseline is not everybody gets health care, everybody should be able to go to a doctor or a medical facility if they are sick. If that's not the baseline, then I don't care what you get out of the next step, because you did not provide for the general welfare. And that's where I feel like the government has a responsibility. So your hybrid model, I'm fine with the hybrid model as long as we meet the first 2 or 3 criteria.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I just don't think, we're failing miserably. This is getting way dark and I tried to avoid it, Brad. I really did. But here's a phrase that happens that it comes up a lot in my house or with my children when we start to talk about these things. And I say, I just don't understand why we do that. I just don't understand why we're okay with that. And one of my sons says, Dad, they were okay with Sandy Hook. They didn't do anything about that. Which is true. A person went into a school and slaughtered children, and nothing changed. And like that's so dark, and I apologize.
Yeah.
But that is true. Explain to me why we're okay with that. Because we are okay with that. And I'm not a gun owner, and I don't mean this as I'm not trying to disparage against gun owners. I don't believe we should repeal the Second Amendment, but we sure didn't do anything that tangibly changed the safety of children in schools.
Yeah.
And because if we did, we wouldn't have had any school shooting after Sandy Hook. And we've had them, Yeah. And it's all about, I have my rights and I have this and I have that. And you're right. You do all the above. And I have formulated this opinion, and until someone talks me off of it, and I'll challenge you now, if you want to talk me off of it, I will receive your argument. I like bourbon and I like to travel. When I do both, there are agreed upon norms and expectations about what I can and cannot do. I can't drink as much bourbon as I want and then go out and do anything I want to do. I can't drive a car. I shouldn't be allowed to drive a car. There should be serious consequences if I drink a few drinks and go out and drive a car. Yeah. And I'm fine with that. That's every time I get on a plane, I'm treated like a terrorist. I have to go through a metal detector. I have to take my belt off. I have to take my shoes off. They have to scan all my stuff. There's zero reason that I've ever given to indicate that that's just how I should be treated. But you know what? I'm okay with that because it makes it safer for everybody else. And I don't understand why that same logic is not applied to guns in this country.
Yeah.
The regulation of firearms should exist. I'm not saying nobody should have a gun, but why is it that you have a gun and I'm more licensed for my car than a person is for their gun? That doesn't make any sense. That's not. I'm getting way off track, but
yeah.
But I'm not in that. I go back to you say, where are we as a nation and what do we want to do with this?
So, what do you think the motivation is to not regulate that area? Money?
Well, friends that are. I think that's a big part of it. My friends that are gun owners have explained to me that one of the criticisms that's provided by groups like the NRA is that they don't want guns registered because the Nazis registered guns, and that would mean the government would know where all the guns are. And so they don't want to have them registered because that means the government could come and take your guns. Which I personally think is a silly argument because, shocker, the government has bigger guns than you do. I don't care what kind of gun you have. I don't care what big the magazine is. I don't care what kind of firing mechanism. The government has bigger guns than you. And if they want to take your guns, they will.
Yeah.
They're not going to. And I don't think they should. I mean, I'm not a gun owner, but I'm a huge, advocate for the Second Amendment. I really believe the Second Amendment, should exist. But I'm not going, I apologize for going this rant, but to me, it gets at the same idea. What do we think is the role of the government? If it's to provide for the general welfare, which is what I think it is, then all of these things, we regulate commerce and we regulate businesses, we regulate capitalism to provide for the general welfare. So, we need to lighten this up, man, because
So do you think like the money-making investment piece of capitalism has just gotten too deep into the decision makers of the United States? Is that what we're talking about?
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, that's what it seems like. Yeah,
the Supreme Court decision of Citizens United.
Yeah.
I mean, in the Supreme Court decisions, you know this, right? I mean, you know the story. They basically said corporations are people. Like they have the same rights as people.
Yeah.
How does that make sense? How in the world does that make sense?
Yeah.
You know? But yet they did that. And so subsequently, corporations get a lot richer than people a lot quicker. And so therefore, they have the same influence as people and no accountability to the individuals. I mean, it just boggles my mind that's where we're at.
You know, it's like, so, okay, I got this idea in my head. I don't even know if I'll be able to articulate it, but I mean, obviously we live in a finite world, you know, there's no way for an economy to keep growing and growing and growing and for investors to keep having bigger returns and bigger returns. You know, it can't. And, you know, you're going to reach a point where you just, I mean, it doesn't go on infinitely. It just doesn't work that way. So do you think we're getting to a point where people are doing whatever they can to make sure we can continue this, you know, growth in the economy and growth in the money for investors and return for investors and corporations? So it comes to more extreme actions?
I think it's a combination of things. I mean, you and I both know, we understand numbers, we understand compound growth. I think at some point it grows exponentially, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that is what it is. It grows exponentially. I mean, I don't pretend to know your finances. It's not my business. I'm not trying to say it is. But we've both been, I suspect, somewhat beneficiaries of that. You know, we started making sound, simple investments when we were younger. We're 30 years down the road, 35, 40 years down the road, and we've seen the growth of that. Mm-hmm. And so we have attained a certain level, right? I think there are people who like that, and they want more of that. And it's probably to scales. I know it's not probably. I know it's to scales I will never achieve. And I can't help but think that there are people that think if they get enough, which means if I get more, I will be insulated from whatever bad happens or could happen. And so I think that I don't know. I mean, I try to figure out why do people want more and more and more and more. Because, I mean, honestly, I got to a point where I decided I don't really need more.
Yeah.
I don't want more. I don't want to have to do what I would have to do to get more. Maybe that makes me lazy. I don't know. I think it makes me happy. That's where I'm at with it.
Yeah.
You know? And
you ready to wrap this up?
We probably should, because otherwise I might cry.
You got any other points you want to throw out there that you've been stewing on all week?
I think I really like your theme. We've talked about this a lot, and you bring it up a lot in a great way about the sense of humility. And I think that sense of humility and my role and my participation in the fabric of humanity, I think that how do we reconcile that with capitalism? You know?
Yeah.
And I don't know. I don't know the answer. I want to believe in the best world of
I think it goes back to, you know, trying to, what you said about trying to meet the needs and the goods of people in general.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hi, Chris. Hope you've got some good tangents for us.
Oh, I do. I do.
Hope they're fun, because this is dark.
I think I think they're all dark. Dark. We went on dark tangents, so you had dark future topics. But I will say this: here's a little tidbit that I get to do while I'm listening. The first capitalist nation was the Dutch Republic back in the 17th century. They had the first stock market. They had the first farmers that brought stuff in to sell, and they had centralized banking. So there you go. Good job, Dutch, back in the 17th century.
Is that the same Dutch like that were sailing around the world, like the Dutch colonies, the Dutch Indies? That same idea.
Yes, and they invented the double Dutch bus at the same time. So that's them. Yeah. All right, so let me ask you a few questions.
Okay, you were a social studies. Was I right about Adam Smith at all?
Yeah. Okay. So let me go into Adam Smith because I think this is good. So I'm on the computer bouncing around with Adam Smith. You got the book right. He is actually considered the father of capitalism, right?
Am I dumb for not knowing Adam Smith?
No, because Adam Smith graduated from Fairfield High School's heavy equipment program in 2004, if you ask me. So, so here is
honestly, let me just. So, Brad, the only reason I know this is because it was a common quick recall topic when I coached the academic team.
Oh, okay.
That's where I first learned of it.
Okay, so makes sense.
That's where I got.
Well, I never played quick recall because I have very slow recall.
He said I never played quick recall.
What, you don't play it?
It's a game.
Yeah, it's a game. Never played.
It's a game.
So get this. So this is pretty cool. So Adam Smith, here's his definition: an economic system where private individuals and businesses, rather than government, own the assets and control the productions. The government's role was enforcing contracts, protecting property rights, and maintaining order. That's the true capitalistic definition from Adam Smith. So I said, okay, Mr. AI machine, grade the United States on how we are graded as a capitalist country. So here's what AI said C. Here are the four things.
They went with our bailout grade.
Yeah, I really thought it would be.
See, we don't need AI. We can do this on our own.
It's right on point. I want y'all to listen to this. So number one, here's why we're bad. One, corporate monopolies. That lessens competitions, and we're full of monopolies. It's like every other day you turn on the TV and one movie place is buying another movie place, and like Disney's buying everybody, and it's just that is not good in a capitalistic. Can't make jokes. Apparently, Rosie O'Donnell did a knockout job this week. My wife's been watching that, but anyway, so corporate too much stuff, lobbying. He warns against lobbying. He warns against businesses and businessmen trying to get the ear of the government, and he warns against don't listen to these people because they're out for themselves.
That doesn't happen for us, though, does it?
No, a lot. I mean, it's amazing that it's legal. You brought up Citizens United. I mean, I remember just when that happened, I'm like, how do you come to that conclusion that a business is a person and now you can contribute whatever? I mean, it's changed. It's flipped things upside down. Number three, the government interventions, as far as the bailouts you guys talked about a little bit. And he also says the social safety nets, which, that's an interesting thought. I kind of thought the social safety nets were kind of the job of government, but within the balance of how they should be balanced and not overdone or not underdone. But interesting. And number four, here's why I think we're screwed, Scott. Number four, Adams talked about this, a couple hundred years ago. Capitalism is only safe with empathy, civic virtue, and social trust. You tell me we have any of those going on right now. And I would say, I'm not with you on that. The social trust, I don't think any business is out there to do anything but make money off of me. Think about how your information is shared without you knowing. And it's so tricky and the deception's so high. Empathy, very seldom. Most companies you don't see showing any kind of empathy. Most are out to make money. And I was always curious how, so you have this company and you provide this service or sell this product and, you're answering to your shareholders, not just the people of this country. That always bothered me as well.
Those things you're talking about there, though, it's much harder to scale when you're to a level of 350 million people.
Yeah.
When you're talking about trust and empathy and all those things, so, I mean, that just complicates it all.
I always put myself in this situation. Let's say the three of us are three of the most powerful oil barons in the United States, and we're sitting here around on this. We're talking on the phone. Let's say we're sitting around a table, and we literally have control of the market. I always thought it was crazy when the gas is the highest. You watch quarterly reports from Exxon and Mobil, and their profits are the highest. And we can literally determine, like, guys, we can make $500 million a piece just by doing what we do. And with the market, we're in so much of a monopoly and in control of that. It boils down to when the 1% of the population, in my opinion, controls so much of the wealth, you got to hope they're good people. And I don't think most of them are. I think they're out of touch with what living is if you're a normal person. So that's why I'm with Scott. I'm like, man, the outlook is not good.
Yeah.
But everything's secular. For sure. Dude, don't you think?
I don't know. Yeah, okay.
Here's the thought. So here's a big change. And I think if you look at capitalism 100 years ago, it was basically you built things and sold them. You might provide a service, but that's not really the majority of what you got. You were buying things, making things, inventing things, and selling them. And now think about what people are making with getting clicks on the internet, services they're providing. It's totally changed because now you got to look at capitalism as to what it is, as to what you can make doing things that are not requiring you to build or produce anything. So all that's taken into the account as well. Look at all the services that are offered, from streaming services to just so many different services, monitoring services for your credit,
I heard
or your house.
The other day, I read this. This was so disturbing to me. There is an industry of services where people reach out to plaintiffs in personal injury, and they basically give them cash advance loans to say, hey, Chris, I see you're suing Jefferson Mall. Doesn't exist anymore, so we can shame them.
It's still there.
Does it?
Yeah. Let's sue Burger King.
Burger King. Let's be consistent.
Yeah.
All right, Brad. You're suing Burger King because when you went to their dirty bathroom and their inefficient system, you slipped in there while waiting forever for your burger. Well, you know what? You're probably going to have it's going to be a while before you get your settlement. So you may have some tough economic times. But I'll make you a personal loan to tide you over. Okay? And the fact that is an industry targeting injury claims, personal injury claims, and giving them money and telling them, hey, you're going to get this other money, but I'll help you get through until you wait for that other money to come in. And I'm sure presuming the most positive intentions, maybe you did suffer some horrific injury and you can't work. Maybe that's true. But let's be honest. I don't think most personal injury claims are founded in true injury. But that's what J.D. Wentworth, the J.D. Wentworth 8776, whatever now. That is what that is. That's what that company does. There was a John Oliver on This Week Tonight. Yeah. That he did their big expose was on that company, and I learned a lot just from what you're saying. But yeah, people will, and you can imagine the people that they target. That's an industry. So is getting out of timeshares. Like, pay me to get out of timeshares. What's the grade? We need a grade. Capitalism. I mean, true capitalism, as Adam Smith defined it, with the caveats he produced.
Or do we want to do American capitalism?
Yeah, America. I think where we live. Let's do that.
F minus plus. F minus minus. I think it's horrible. I think it's epically horrible. I think it is the ruin of our nation. I mean, that's really it.
Well,
I'm not that far. I think there's a lot of good that's come out of it.
Same. I think it's just
come out of it or where we are now.
Well,
those are different things.
Yeah, where we are now, all right. That would change my grade to a D, from a C to a D. Just because of the last thing that Adam Smith talks about that's needed with the empathy, the protecting right, or the empathy, civic virtues, and social trust. Social trust is not there. It's just not.
Well, even like if you look back over the past 7 years, when we had after the George Floyd murder, and all these companies coming out saying, "Oh, we're all about social justice, and we're doing this and we're doing that," and as soon as the political tide changed, they're like, "We don't care about that."
Yeah.
Like we don't care about that. So why did they do that? They did that to sell more soap. They don't really care about the society's ills, and so to me that makes it an F.
I'll go D plus.
I'll concede a D plus or a C minus.
I'm gonna go C.
If we do the history. Oh my God!
I was at C.
Somebody's living on a fatted calf over there. Wow.
All right.
Okay.
All right. So here are you ready for the tangents?
Please, it's got to be positive. I don't care what it is, but go ahead.
I like 3 of them. I love. Okay. I do. One of them. I'm going to go ahead and give you all of them. So the first one is the one I ranked fourth for me. We talked a lot about risk taking, and so you talked about it enough where I wrote it down as a topic, because we talked about getting loans, giving loans, starting businesses, and that just made me think about like in the moment, like risk you took in the moment, like when you jumped off that rock, or when you jumped from one rock to another when you were 22 years old. That was a risk. What about just life risk? Things you took a chance on, like, Brad quit a job that he probably would have made a lot of money in, and he went to become a teacher. Scott, same deal. You would have made a lot more money with that brain if you didn't dedicate it to trying to educate children. I mean, good Lord. So like different kind of risk and things we did, stupid things. Think about how risk had changed. Like I wouldn't do 1/10 of the things now that I would have done as a teenager, early 20s, because you kind of feel invincible. But now I'm like, heck, I'm months away from retiring. I'm not blowing this thing now. So it changes as you age. So risk taking, that's my fourth ranked one. Okay. This one, this would be a great pod. Yeah. 7 deadly sins. We talked about greed tonight, and I thought, man, how cool would that be? Let's go all with pride. Let's add lust. Let's add envy. Let's add gluttony. Let's do wrath and sloth. Maybe like rank them, maybe spend 5 minutes each on them, maybe talk about how they apply to you or America or whatever. But the 7 deadly sins, see if we can get Brad Pitt, Morgan Freeman on the pod.
That was a freaky movie. Oh, man.
It was. But how cool that would be a great pod, man, because that's a lot to talk about. And how are those things applicable to our culture that we're living in today? And then I thought, man, that's going to be the one. And I do think that might be the one. But here's the next one. What about, I've heard so much about 1984 versus 2026. Hey, what about it? Think about it. You've got the language control and the alternative facts that go on from the book to today. You've got the doublethink versus the objective reality. You got the 2 minutes of hate from the book, and then you got the tribal outrage that we kind of create here against this and that and this culture. And it's Americans against Americans. You have continuous envy shifts and the geopolitical positioning. Like the enemy shifts are like, who's the enemies versus the media. Then it's this or that and the other. I mean, we have a lot of parallels with the book, The 1984. And this one might be a little bit of research based, because you might have to do a little updating and refreshing on the book 1984. But man, if there was ever a lot, and then think about the other one, like the surveillance that went on and all the digital tracking, and everybody, they're talking about those cameras now that they're taking your license plates and what they're tracking phones. There is a lot of that going on. So if you want to have some fun with 1984, might be a good pod to do it. And the last one, I mean, you didn't give me a choice but to include amendments. Do we want to talk about the First Amendment, the freedom of speech, the freedom of religion? Do we get into the Second Amendment? Let's go. And then the fourth, because that's kind of like the tracking and the mobile and the searches and seizures. Are we not being violated in that way these days? So risk taking. Yeah. Okay. 7 deadly sins. Man, that would be great. That would be so great. 1984 and 2026 for number 3. Or do we just bust out the amendments? I think probably the hottest are always the first, second, and the fourth. Maybe, we could throw in whatever amendment you wanted to talk about. That would be another heavy podcast, but man, You have some people interested in listening to anything when you're talking about guns, because
man, we didn't come up with anything happy while we were talking. No happy tangents.
Well, I think risk taking would be happy. See, that's why I like risk taking. I think
that is an option. That's why I threw it out there, because it was definitely on an island.
Because I like, I don't know, like you, Chris. You often talk about how it's a good thing to like reflect upon, the collective experiences and our lives lived. That's where I think risk taking would be fun. Like if we could kind of talk about things that were huge risk we didn't know they were huge risks.
Yes.
Things that were risks. Yeah, I don't want to get into it because it's always more fun when we do it fresh. But I personally, you were dismissive of risk. I like risk taking. I don't know if I want to do 7 deadly sins. I just think that could be not good.
You might get really dark.
So, it might get really dark. Or it might get to a point where it's like, I take the 5th. I take the 5th.
Yeah.
I don't think I want to talk about that anymore.
Take a 5th of bourbon.
Yeah.
We might have to save that one for a fireside, Chris.
I can go with risk taking.
I mean, seriously, guys, this week, I try to invest hours, 2 to 5 preparing.
Yeah.
It was some dark analysis for me. And I was like, I just can't keep doing this.
And I think the dark part is like, no matter how long you try to think, and you can go to those happy stories of empathetic big corporations or whatnot, or social trust, and try to pretend there is. But truth be told, you've kind of become cynical. And I hate that. And I question myself all the time. If you have the cynicism that you have, you still got to challenge yourself and be curious.
Sure.
To try to look out and say, well, maybe I'm just overdoing this. Because there are here's the crazy thing. The people you encounter in life, the people that I meet in stores, the parents that come in and I talk to, you know what? Most people are good.
Yeah.
Most people I meet and interact with are good. So,
well, and that's where I go back to, I love Brad's point about it's come up so many things. Humility and our fabric of humanity.
Yeah.
And that to me is where it's like, that's what I need to be reminded of, that like, you were kind of the, random person I interacted with yesterday. You were kind of a jerk to me or to this person today. But you know what? I don't know what your day was like. And maybe I just need to extend you a little grace and say, hey, hope things get better for you today.
Yeah.
Or not even say that, but just think that and not be angry about it,
Yeah. And to carry that on. And it's like when you look at those 3 things that Adams talks about, empathy, civic virtue, and social trust, is probably 3 of the things that made B-Rad a hell of a principal. Because I think those 3 things existed within the adults, adult culture in the school.
Sure. Absolutely.
So very applicable to life, not just capitalism.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Because I think it is, to my point about communism earlier, it's failed. Like, in theory, I think we would all say, wow, if there was a world where everyone got exactly what they needed and everybody got to do everything that fully actualized themselves, I'd be all on board for that. Yeah, well, that's not going to happen because people are people.
Yeah.
So, but, communism's a great idea until you start to do it.
That's where I would have lost if I would have had a bet on that. We'd have said democratic socialism at some point in this podcast. I would have lost that bet. Yeah, so I think it's an interesting topic too, because like I just drove on a road that totally is there because of socialist principles of taxing and stuff like that. And it's kind of more hybrid with capitalism, but
well, our profession. Public education.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So many things.
But again, provide for the common welfare.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what we did.
Yeah.
We believed in it.
That was the civic virtue. It's like we're doing good here.
For a year or for 30 years, we wanted to do that. So
we better wrap this up, fellas.
All right. Okay.
We're going to risk taking next week. Thank
All
everybody.
right.
Thank
Chris,
everybody
thank
for
you.
listening. Make sure
All
you
Thank
review
you,
us
guys.
and
Appreciate
follow
it.
us and share us and give us some comments.
Tell your friends that there's some
Well,
crazies
with
on the
some
show.
comments.
Heck
Let's
yeah.
go.
Let's get some comments. Y'all
All
let,
right.
y'all
See
let
ya.
us y'all tell some jokes in there for Scott.
Yeah. Pick him up.
Anything, please help me out. Help a brother out.
Help a man out.
All right, we'll see you
Pick him
guys next
up.
week.
See ya. Thanks.